Good day, everyone. Before we begin our discussion, let us take a moment to reflect on emotions that we all experience but often struggle to manage. The anger, hostility, and aggressions. These emotional and behavioral responses are part of human experience, yet, when misunderstood or poorly controlled, they can affect our relationship, decision making, and overall mental well being. In our healthcare setting, especially in nursing practice, understanding this concept is essential because they influence patient behavior, safety, and therapeutic communications. As we start this topic, we will explore how anger differs from hostility and aggressions, what triggers them, and how they can be expressed in healthy or unhealthy ways. This understanding will help us respond with empathy, professionalism, and effective interventions in both personal and clinical situations. Now let's define hostility, anger, and aggressions. Hostility and aggressions are both rooted in anger. Aggression refers to any words said or actions taken with purpose or being hurtful, harmful with the intentions of inflicting damage or other unpleasantness upon someone. Hostility, on the other hand, refers to the state of ill will and bad feeling, where a person dislikes or hates someone or something else. Hostility and aggressions are both rooted in anger, which is why we are often confused as the same. However, that is not the case. In fact, hostility and aggressions don't even mean anger. The simplest way to explain this is to understand the anger is a feeling, whereas hostility and aggressions are behavior that stem out of anger. Think of this way: you cry because you are sad. Similarly, you show hostility and aggressions because you are angry. Hostility and aggressions are behavior that are dictated by anger. So anger is a common feeling that everyone feels. It is normal and is even healthy to feel angry, as it helps one deal with whatever issues that need to be dealt with. However, how we react when we are angry, it's what makes an impact. Some people deal with anger in an expectable manner by going over the issues and eventually letting them go. However, others tend to react more violently or in a conflicting manner. Anger is a common feeling that everyone feels. It is a normal and it is even healthy to feel angry, as it helps one deal with whatever issues that need to be dealt with. However, how we react when we are angry, it's what makes an impact. So some people deal with anger in an expectable manner by going over the issues and eventually letting them go. However, others tend to react more violently or in a conflicting manner. Everyone's react differently when they are angry. Some people scream, some turn red, some cry, some glare, and etc. However, people turn violent. Aggression refers to any words said or actions taken with the purpose of being hurtful, harmful, and with the intention of inflicting damage or other unpleasantness upon someone. In most cases, aggressions occurs in retaliation to something someone else said or did. In some cases, aggression can be unprovoked. This could be due to the repressed anger or misplaced anger. Example, taking the anger of something else out on someone's or something else. Hostility, on the other hand, refers to the state of ill will and bad feeling where a person dislikes or hates someone or something else. For example, if your colleague insulted you in front of your boss, chances are that you are going to dislike over or even hate him forever, or at least until the time you are working there. So the colleague must also probably dislike or hate you, which why he insulted you in the first place. The feeling of usually mutual dislike is called hostility. However, it need not be mutual. It could be one-sided. For example, if your colleague did not insult you on purpose and tries to apologize and you continue to hate him and refuse to accept his apology, then you are showing hostility towards him. Neurobiologic theories explain anger, hostility, and aggression as outcome of abnormalities in brain chemistry and structures. Decreased levels of serotonin are associated with poor impulse control and emotional regulations, making individuals more prone to sudden anger and aggressive behavior. In contrast, increased levels of dopamine and norepinephrine heighten the arousal, alertness, and the stress response, which can intensify irritability and aggressive reactions. Structural damage to specific areas of the brain further contributes to this behavior. Damage to the limbic system, which regulates emotions, and may also result in exaggerated emotional responses, while injury to the frontal lobe impairs judgment, decision making, and impulse control. Damage to the temporal lobes can also lead to emotional instability and sudden aggressive outbursts. Psychosocial theory, in the other hand, view anger and aggression as behavior learned through development and environmental experiences. These theories suggest that individuals who fail to develop adequate impulse control during the childhood may have difficulty managing the frustrations and delaying emotional responses. Additionally, the inability to delay gratifications, often due to the inconsistent discipline, lack of guidance, or adverse earlier experiences, can lead individuals to respond with anger or aggressions when their needs or desire are not immediately met. So, together, these theories emphasize that aggressions often result from a combination of biological vulnerabilities and unmet psychosocial development needs. Based on the assessment findings, the clients demonstrate behaviors and responses that indicates difficulty managing anger and stress, which may escalate into the harmful actions towards others. So, observable cues such as verbal threats, aggressive posture, irritability, impaired pulse control, or history of violent behavior support the nursing diagnosis of risk for other directed violence. This diagnosis reflects the potential for the client to cause physical or emotional harm to others when anger and hostility are not effectively controlled. In addition, the client exhibit inadequate strategies for managing stressor and emotional responses as evidenced by maladaptive behavior such as verbal aggressions, withdrawal, denial, or inability to problem solve effectively. So these findings support the nursing diagnosis of ineffective coping, indicating that the client is unable to utilize healthy coping mechanism to deal with internal or external stressor. Together, these diagnoses guide nursing interventions toward ensuring safety, reducing aggressive behavior, and promoting the development of effective coping skills. Intervention for anger, hostility, and aggression are most effective and least restrictive when implemented early in the cycle of aggressions. Before behavior escalates to loss of control or violence, early recognitions of warning signs allow nurses to intervene proactively, ensuring safety while promoting the client's sense of dignity and self-control. So the goal is to reduce environmental stressor, support emotional regulations, and prevent aggressive outbursts. Managing the therapeutic milieu plays a crucial role in preventing aggressions. This include providing planned and structured activities that promote engagement and reduce boredom, as well as encouraging informal discussions that allows the client to express concern in non-threatening manner. Scheduled one-to-one interactions help build trust and provide opportunities for clients to verbalize feelings while clearly informing clients of routines and expectations and decreases anxiety and uncertainty. Additionally, nurses assist clients in resolving conflict and problem solving, guiding them to express angry feeling appropriately and helping them develop healthier ways to manage frustrations without resorting to aggressions. Managing aggressive behavior involves recognizing the triggering phase, the early stage when a client shows sign of agitations or irritability before aggression escalates. During this phase, it is essential for the nurse to approach the client in non-threatening and calm manner using a soft tone of voice and open body language to reduce the tensions. Conveying empathy and demonstrating understanding of client's feeling help build rapport, build trust, and de-escalate the anger. Actively listening to the client and encouraging the verbal expressions of feelings allows the individuals to release frustration safely. Additionally, uh, additional interventions include teaching deep breathing exercises to promote relaxations, suggesting movement to a quieter area to remove environmental stressors, and administering PRN medication if prescribed and appropriate. So, engaging the client in a physical activity such as walking can also dissipate excess energy and reduce the intensity of anger. So, these interventions aim to de-escalate aggression safely, maintain therapeutic environment, and support the clients in the regarding and the regaining control over their emotions. During the escalation phase, when the client's agitation intensifies and aggressive behavior becomes more apparent, it is crucial for the nurse to take control of the situation to ensure the safety of the clients, staff, and the other environments. Direction should be given in a firm, calm, and clear voice to reduce confusions and prevent further provocations. The nurse may direct the client to designate room or quiet area for a timeout to allow the escalations. PRN medications may be offered again if indicated and prescribed. It is important to communicate clearly that aggression is unacceptable while also reassuring the clients that staff are present to help maintain safety and regain control if needed. Staff should remain visible and supportive without threatening the clients unnecessarily. If these interventions prove ineffective, assistance from additional staff may be required. Coordinated shows of force, usually involving up to 6 trained staff members, can safely guide the client to take a time out or receive the medications while minimizing the harm. So these measures are implemented with the dual goals of ensuring safety and helping the clients regain emotional control. Crisis phase. During the crisis phase, when the client has lost control and poses an immediate risk to self or others, staff must take control of the situation according to the facility or agency policy. Only personnel trained in behavioral management techniques should be intervened. Restraint or seclusion should be used only if necessary, following proper protocols, including obtaining consent when required and adhering to the time limits. Typically, 24 hours for initial approval and 15 to 30 minutes for ongoing monitoring and reassessment depending on the client's conditions and agency guidelines. In the recovery phase, as the clients regain self-control, intervention shift to post-crisis support. Nurses should talk with the clients about the situations or trigger, helping them understand the events that lead to the crisis. Intervention also include assisting the client to relax or sleep, exploring alternative, non-aggressive ways, or handling anger, and ensuring documentations of any injuries to the client or staff. Finally, Stop debriefing is essential to review the incidents, evaluate the effectiveness of interventions, and reinforce safely protocols while supporting the emotional well-being of the team. In the post-crisis phase, the client has regained control of the emotions and restraint or seclusions are removed to allow reintegrations into the therapeutic milieu. At this stage, the nurse engaged the client's account discussions of the behavior, focusing on the understanding what occurred and the triggers involved without lecturing or uh, chastis- chastising. The client is gradually encouraged to return to the normal activities, group sessions, and other therapeutic interactions. The emphasis during the phase is on the helping the client reflect on their feelings and behavior, learn to express emotions appropriately, and develop strategies to resolve problems or conflicts in a non-aggressive manners. Post-crisis interventions aim to reinforce coping skills, prevent recurrence, and restore a sense of safety and normal within the environment. Cultural views and values plays a significant role in how individuals experience and express anger, hostility, and aggressions. Different cultures have distinct norms regarding acceptable emotional expressions, which can influence both behavior and coping strategies. Additionally, ethnic or minority status may affect the diagnosis and treatment of psychiatric illnesses, as cultural beliefs, stigma, and communication style can shape how symptoms are reported, interpreted, and managed by healthcare providers. Certain culture-bound syndromes are associated with aggressive, agitated, or violent behavior. For example, the Whabyu, found in Korean culture, is often linked to the suppressed anger and stress, resulting in somatic and emotional symptoms. Buffet delirante, observed in West Africa and Caribbean populations, involves sudden, brief episodes of aggressive or agitative behavior often triggered by stress, and amok, seen in Southeast Asian cultures, is characterized by sudden outbursts of violent aggressions, usually followed by exhaustion or amnesia. Awareness of these cultural variations is crucial for nurses to provide cultural sensitive assessment, interventions, and care while avoiding misdiagnosis or inappropriate management. Okay, I'll try to answer this one. Is this following statement true or false? Hostility and aggressions are terms that can be used interchangeably. What's your answer? Very good. False. Hostility and aggressions are two different terms. Hostility means verbal aggressions. Physical aggressions involves attack or on injury to another persons or destructions of property. Okay, let's proceed to the treatments. Okay, pharmacologic interventions for anger, hostility, and aggressions primarily focus on treating the underlying or comorbid psychiatric conditions rather than the aggressive behavior alone. So, lithium is commonly used in individuals with bipolar disorder, conduct disorder, or intellectual disability to help stabilize mood and reduce impulsive aggressions. Carbamazepine and valproate are effective in managing irritability and aggressions associated with dementia, psychosis, or personality disorders. Atypical antipsychotics are frequently prescribed for the clients with dementia, brain injury, intellectual disability, or personality disorder to decrease agitations and aggressive behaviors. In cases of dementia, benzodiazepine may be used cautiously to calm agitations, while haloperidol and lorazepam are often employed to rapidly reduce severe agitations, aggression, or psychotic symptoms when immediate safety is concerned. So overall, pharmacologic treatment is most effective when combined with behavioral and environmental interventions, targeting both the symptoms and then the underlying conditions. In a psychiatric unit, it is important to nurses to be aware of the factors that may influence aggressions within the milieu. Individual client characteristics play a significant role, including the history of violent or aggressive behavior, which can increase the likelihood of a future incidents. How a client manage anger, whether whether they use healthy coping strategies or act impulsively, also affect the risk of aggressions. Additionally, a client's belief about anger, such as whether they view it as unacceptable or harmful, can shape how it is expressed. So, nurses should carefully assess the client's behavior to identify the current phase of the aggression cycles. It can be triggering, escalation, crisis, or post-crisis to implement timely and appropriate interventions that prevent harm and maintain a safe therapeutic environment. Based on the assessment, the client exhibit behavior and emotional responses that indicates difficulty managing anger and stress, supporting the nursing diagnosis of risk for other directed violence and ineffective coping. Risk factor may include the history of aggressive behavior, poor impulse control, and ineffective strategies for expressing anger or resolving conflicts. Ineffective coping is reflected in the client's inability to manage stressor or express feelings appropriately, which may escalate to verbal or physical aggressions if unaddressed. The outcome identifications, the desired outcome for the client focus on safety, emotional regulations, and therapeutic engagement. The client will not harm self or threaten others, ensuring a safe environment for everyone. Refrain from intimidations or frightening behaviors, maintaining appropriate social interactions. Describe feelings and concern without aggressions, that is demonstrating improved coping and emotional expressions, and comply with the treatment, including the participation in interventions and use of prescribed medications or behavioral strategies. So this outcome guides nursing intervention in promoting safety, enhancing coping skills, fostering healthy ways to manage anger and frustrations. Intervention are most effective and least restrictive when implemented early in the aggression cycle. Before the client loses control or aggression escalates, managing the environment is a key strategy to prevent triggers and promote safety. This includes providing planned and structured activities that keeps the clients engaged and reduce boredom, as well as scheduling one-on-one interactions to build trust and allow clients to express feeling in a safe setting. Nurse should also offer opportunities for problem solving or conflict resolutions, guiding client to address frustrations and disagreements in non-aggressive ways. Throughout all interventions, it is essential to consider the safety of a patient, ensuring that the milieu remains therapeutic and free from harm while supporting the client's emotional regulations. During the triggering phase, when early signs of agitations or irritability appears, the nurse should approach the clients in non-threatening and calm manner to prevent escalations. It is important to convey empathy and actively encourage verbal expressions of angry feelings, allowing the client to communicate frustration safely. Using clear, simple, and short statements helps reduce confusions and maintain focus. The client should be given time for self-expressions while being guided towards constructive ways of coping. Interventions may include suggesting a move to a quieter area to minimize environmental stressor, offering PRN medication if prescribed, and encouraging physical activities such as walking to help release tensions and reduce agitations. These strategies aim to de-escalate aggressions early and support the clients in regaining emotional control. Question number two, is the following statement true or false? A client with a history of violent or aggressive behavior is more likely to exhibit similar behavior in the future? What's your answer? Correct. That is true. A history of violent or aggressive behavior is one of the best predictors of future aggressions. In the escalation phase, the client agitations intensifies and aggressive behaviors become more pronounced. At this stage, the nurse must take control of the situation to ensure safety while minimizing confrontations. Direction should be given in a firm, calm voice, providing clear guidance to the client. The nurse may direct the client to a timeout in a quiet room or an area to allow for de-escalations. It is important to communicate that aggressive behavior is unacceptable while maintaining a supportive stance and reassuring the client that staff are present to help maintain control. If the client refuses medication during the triggering phase, it may be offered again appropriate. Uh, it may be offered again as appropriate. In situations where verbal intervention are ineffective, a coordinated show of force with trained staff may be necessary to safely guide the client to a timeout or administer medications. We always prioritizing the safety and minimizing the harm. During the crisis phase, the client has lost control and aggression poses an immediate risk to self, staff, or others. So the nurse must take charge of the situation to ensure safety. If necessary, restraint may be applied, but only staff who are trained in safe restraint techniques should participate. Typically, 4 to 6 trained staff members are required to safely implement restraint while minimizing the injury. Throughout the process, the client should be informed that their behavior is out of control, that the staff are taking these measures solely to maintain safety. Intervention in this phase prioritizes protections of all individuals while preparing for the post-crisis de-escalations and support. In the recovery phase, the client has regained control of emotions and the focus shifts to reflections, learning, and restoration of the therapeutic environment. The nurse should talk with the client about the situations or trigger, helping them understand what led to the aggressive behavior. Interventions may include assisting the client to relax or sleep and explore alternative ways to handle anger or frustration in the futures. Any injuries to the clients or staff should be assessed and documented. Staff should also debrief to review the incidents and ensure safety procedures were followed. Other clients in the milieu can be encouraged to express their own feelings, but it is important not to discuss the aggressive client in details to protect privacy and prevent stigmatizations. This space emphasizes reflections, learning, and restorations of safety and trust within the environment. In the post-crisis phase, the client has regained self-control, and any restraint or seclusion should be removed as soon as the established criteria are met. The nurse should calmly discuss the behavior with the client, providing guidance without lecturing or chastising to help them understand the consequences of their actions. It is important to give feedback, reinforcing the client's effort in regaining control and encouraging the use of healthier coping strategies. The client should be reintegrated into the therapeutic milieu as soon as they are able to participate safely in activities and interactions, promoting a sense of normalcy, inclusions, and continued skills development in managing emotions. Care is the most important or most effective when anger is addressed and diffused in the earlier stage of aggression cycles. Before it escalates to harmful behavior, the primary goal is to teach the clients who are angry, hostile, or potentially aggressive to express their feelings in a verbal, safe, and constructive manner. Interventions focus on preventing threats or harm to others and avoiding distractions property, while helping clients develop healthy coping strategies, emotional regulations, and problem-solving skills. So early intervention, consistent guidance, and skill building support both client safety and the therapeutic environment. During which phase does the staff debriefing occurs? A, escalation, B, crisis, C, recovery, or D, post-crisis phase? So what's your answer? What's your wild guess? Correct. The answer is C, recovery. Stop debriefing occurs during the recovery phase to allow for discussion of the event, how it was handled, what worked well or need improvement, and how the situations could have been diffused more effectively. The Joint Commissions and Accreditations of Healthcare Organizations issued a Sentinel event alert highlighting the risk of intimidating and disruptive behavior in healthcare settings. This behavior can compromise patient safety, staff well-being, and the overall quality of care. Overt actions include verbal outbursts, threats, or physical aggressive behavior, while passive activities may involve refusal to perform assigned tasks, uncooperative attitudes, or deliberate obstructions of workflow. The alert emphasizes the need for organizations to recognize, prevent, and address this behavior promptly. In 2016, the Joint Commissions on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations expanded this alert to include workplace bullying, acknowledging the negative impact of persistent intimidations or hostile behavior on both staff and patient outcomes. Addressing this behavior requires clear policies, staff educations, and supportive report mechanism to maintain a safe and effective healthcare environment. Modern leadership standard in healthcare emphasize the importance of promoting a safe, professional, and respectful work environment. Organizations are expected to implement a code of conduct that clearly defines acceptable and acceptable behavior, providing guidance for staff at all levels. There should be a structured process for managing disruptive or inappropriate behavior, ensuring that incidents are addressed promptly and fairly. Education and training programs are essential to reinforce expected professional behavior and equip staff with strategies to prevent and respond to conflicts. A zero tolerance policy reinforces accountability, making it clear that all staff, regardless of positions, are held responsible for adhering to professional standards and contributing to a positive workplace culture. Effective management of anger, hostility, and aggressions often requires addressing comorbid psychiatric or medical conditions. This includes ensuring regular follow-up appointments and supporting compliance with the prescribed medications to maintain the symptom control and prevent relapse. Participations in community support programs provides client with ongoing guidance, social interactions, and reinforcement of coping strategies. Anger management groups are particularly beneficial, helping clients express feelings safely while teaching problem solving and conflict resolution techniques. Research indicates that clients' assault on a staff, including those in the community residences, are significant concern, highlighting the importance of structured interventions, educations, and supportive programs to reduce aggressions and enhance safety for both clients and caregiver. Nurses must first be aware of their own response to anger, as personal reactions can influence interactions with hostile or aggressive clients. It is important to practice and gain experience in safe techniques such as restraint and seclusion before applying them in a real situations. During interactions, nurses should remain calm, non-judgmental, and non-punitive. Maintain a professional demeanor to help de-escalate the tensions. Learning from observing experienced nurses can provide valuable insight into effective strategies for managing the aggressions, including communication techniques, environmental management, and safety protocols, ultimately improving both clients' outcome and staff safety. In conclusions, anger, hostility, and aggressions are complex behavior influenced by biological, psychological, and social factors, as well as cultural and environmental contexts. Effective management requires early recognitions, proactive interventions, and a combination of therapeutic, behavioral, and pharmacologic strategies. Nurses plays a critical role in ensuring safety, promoting healthy coping skills, and maintaining a supportive milieu. By understanding the aggression cycle, applying evidence-based interventions, and reflecting on their own responses, nurses can help clients express feelings safely, resolve conflicts constructively, and improve overall well-being while fostering a safe and therapeutic environment for all. So that is for lesson for this topic. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day, everyone. God bless po.